This is Kent Hovind. I'm going through his whole seminar series. I haven't actually watched all of them, and we're debunking as we go. Let's give this a listen. This is like Seminar 4, Lies in the Textbook. Lies in the Textbooks, Creation Seminar 4C, actually. All right, let's check this out, see what he has to say.
In the last two sessions, we covered 15 lies found in the typical textbook. I taught high school science for 15 years, and I'm not against science, I'm not against schools, I'm not against teachers, but I'm against lies. Just don't lie to the kids, okay? Bible says in the book of Proverbs, "Cease, my son, to hear the instruction that causeth thee to err from the words of knowledge." Don't listen to things that are simply not true, okay? Get the lies out of the books. The Bible says God created all things, and it says, "Heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool."
Is Jupiter your hairbrush?
Hath not my hand made all these things? God made everything. And the Bible says,
did you just say handmade?
God formed the entire world. The Bible says God created great whales and every living thing. Now, the textbooks in school are going to teach your kids that every living thing happened by itself.
Okay, no, the books are going to accurately and correctly explain that these things evolved from other things that previously existed, and that's just a fact. If you don't like that, then go suck eggs. You can say that God, like, sparked it all into existence or whatever, and I couldn't possibly care less, but evolution is absolutely a fact of the universe. That's just how it works. I'm sorry you don't like that.
They're not going to teach them God created every living thing, that's for sure.
No, they shouldn't. Why the f*** would a school be teaching children about God? It has nothing to do with school. We all live in the same world. We all live here in the United States. Well, you know, I'm talking about the U.S. Education system. And we all have to cooperate with each other and work together and live together and exist. So we should leave our religious and political beliefs behind. We're just there to learn about math and science and the things that we need to understand the world around us. That's it.
A textbook that says the history of life on Earth began about 3.5 billion years ago. How this occurred has been and will continue to be a topic for inquiry. Let me give you the Hovind translation of what they just said.
History of life on Earth began 3.5 billion years ago. That's correct. A topic for inquiry, yes. This means that they're just going to ask questions about it, of course.
What they just said is, it's okay to inquire how it evolved. It is not okay to inquire if it evolved.
Okay, that's not what it said, but that is correct. Well, I mean, you can inquire about anything. Anybody can inquire about anything. It's like with me and Germany. I had questions about the Holocaust in Nazi Germany. And when I asked those questions, I had them answered and I moved on with my fucking life. But for some reason, neo-Nazis are obsessed with just asking questions and turning these questions into statements in the form of a question. Like, Kent Hovind is going to do something very similar here.
Hey kids, you're allowed to research, how did evolution happen? And if some kid says, well, maybe it didn't happen at all. Oh, shut up, kid, you're out of my class. Okay.
No, kids need to have this explained too. What if it didn't happen? This is a totally valid question, but when you refuse the answer, now you're not just asking questions, you're making statements in the form of a question. That's all.
Okay. The only way you can research is, how did it happen? You cannot even ask the question, did it happen?
Not true at all.
That's not education. That's indoctrination. Okay, I'm sick and tired of paying for that stuff. Now, nobody knows how a mixture of life...
You know what's so funny about what he just said? One more time. I'm sorry. Let's just one more time here.
Okay, the only way you can research is, how did it happen? You cannot even ask the question, did it happen? That's not education. That's indoctrination. Okay, I'm sick and tired of paying for that stuff. Now,
He never paid for any of this shit, is the funny part about it. He didn't file taxes for 30 years and went to prison for 10 years for refusing to file taxes or pay any of his taxes. You weren't paying for any of this, Kent. My God, dude.
nobody knows how a mixture of lifeless chemicals spontaneously organize themselves into the first living cell. Paul Davies said, nobody has a clue how life got started from non-living material by itself. There is not even a good theory how it can happen, but the textbooks are going to teach your kids it just happened, okay? They just tell them, hey, it happened.
That's not what anybody ever says.
And you can't even consider the option that maybe God made it. Here's what happened. Back in the 50s, two guys, Miller and Urey, decided to figure out how life evolved. So,
yeah, he's talking about abiogenesis. Abiogenesis. This has nothing to do with evolution. It's completely unrelated. This is about how life started, not about how it evolved over time. Let me see if I can get some info on abiogenesis, recent abiogenesis info, because I believe we had some breakthroughs. Abiogenesis is the creation of life, like the origins of life, the actual origins of life, as opposed to how life changed over time, which is what evolution is. And Miller and Urey did some experiments in the 50s that were pretty promising, that indicated that the preconditions for life can and did come about in the early Earth's atmosphere or whatever. So this stuff about Miller and Urey being fraudulent, it's just not accurate. But here's the latest research info. RNA self-replication achievement, March 2024. Researchers at the Salk Institute created an RNA enzyme, or a ribozyme, that can accurately copy other functional RNA strands and allow new variants to emerge over time, demonstrating Darwinian evolution at the molecular level. This is huge because previous RNA polymerases couldn't copy sequences accurately enough to maintain function across generations. So, on a molecular level, which is where it would have had to have started, we couldn't prove that it was possible until recently. Now we can prove that it is possible. Last universal common ancestor, or LUCA, dating 2024, new research dated LUCA to approximately 4.2 billion years ago, which provides strong statistical evidence, 13-to-1 odds, that abiogenesis is a rapid process on Earth-like planets. Life emerged remarkably quickly after Earth became habitable. And number 3, peptide RNA coevolution, 2024. Scientists at UCL showed how RNA and amino acids could have spontaneously joined together under early Earth conditions, uniting the RNA world and theoster world theories. This solves a chicken and egg problem. Lightning-induced peptide formation, number 4, July 2024. Researchers simulated lightning on early Earth's ocean surface and successfully created 102 dipeptides from 20 amino acids with conversion ratios up to 25.5%. And finally, number 5, prebiotic homochirality, February 2024. Wow, we had a lot of breakthroughs 2024 to 25. That's incredible. Scientists demonstrated how peptide-mediated reactions, enantio-enriched or single-handedness, amino acids prebiotically, explaining why life uses only left-handed amino acids. So he's going to talk about Miller-Urey in a second, 1952, which only showed amino acids could form. That was 73 years ago. It was big research, though, at the time. We've now shown pathways for RNA formation, peptide synthesis, RNA peptide coupling, self-replication, homochirality, and protocell formation. And multiple independent chemical pathways have been demonstrated. We are getting closer to creating life in the lab, is the bottom line here, which is incredible. Like, holy shit, mind-blowingly incredible. So, I don't know a lot about abiogenesis, but I guess we're about to find out together, right? You didn't look at one of the quotes, but Hovind quoted a scientific racism believer a bit back. He was also a huge proponent of Piltdown Man. Really? Okay, interesting. Damn, I wish I hadn't missed that.
They took a mixture of chemicals and ran it through these tubes and tried to create life in the laboratory. The experiment's been duplicated many, many times. Always been a failure. And always
been a failure in what way? You mean it was a failure to produce life? I think they were trying to produce the preconditions for life, and yes, it was actually a success in doing what it set out to do. A few minutes, but it was a quote by Sir Arthur Keith. Okay, I'll take a look at that later then.
Created more problems for the evolutionist. This textbook says, although he never proved how life originated, he did add evidence to the theory that life could have started by itself. That is a lie.
No.
All they did was create problems for the idea that life could have started by itself. This one says, swirling in the waters of the oceans is a bubbling broth of complex chemicals. Progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. Oh, it sure is.
Yeah.
They don't eat.
So it is. Yes, it's slow. What point are you making here? Of course.
Even happen. That's how slow it is. There are several different articles that say life came from clay. Yep, got some clay together and poof, came alive on the bottom of the ocean.
Nobody ever said that. Like, not one single person believes that clay got together on the bottom of the ocean and then formed life.
They did not address the origin of life in Darwin's book, and it's never been figured out since how life could have started.
Yeah, because it's irrelevant to evolution. It has nothing to do with evolution.
What he did is he took these 4 chemicals and put them in these glass tubes, made them circulate around, and tried to create life in the laboratory. This textbook says many important events occurred during the Archean era, the most important of which was the evolution of life. Progress from complex molecules to the simplest living organism was a very long process. I guess.
Wait, progress from complex molecules to even the simplest living organism is a long process. Yeah. Okay. So,
if you give it billions of years, somehow it looks more reasonable, you know? This one says the first living cells emerged between 4 billion and 3.8 billion years ago.
Yeah, that's correct. And our abiogenesis studies have gotten us closer to the most accurate number.
There is no record of the event, but you better believe it, and you're going to be tested on it.
Okay, I don't know of any textbook that actually talks about abiogenesis. In fact, science textbooks that I'm aware of only ever talk about evolution for like a chapter anyway. When I went through like evolution studies or whatever in science class, we weren't even talking about evolution. We were talking primarily about like, what's his name? The P guy? You know the guy, the P guy. Who the fuck is the P guy? I want to say Mandela. That's not Mandela? No, not Mandela. That's the South African civil rights leader. What the fuck is the guy's name? Punnett Squares dude, you know? The one I'm talking about? Who the fuck is Punnett Squares dude? Something. Not Trump, not that P guy, different P guy. Damn it, I can't remember the guy's name. It was Mendel. Gregor Mendel. Damn it, I could not remember. Mendel, I was close. Okay. Not R. Kelly. Not R. Kelly. Not Donald Trump. Mendel, the P guy. He studied peas. Like P-E-A-S. You know, those peas. Not the same kind of pea that R. Kelly studied. All right. So, back to what I was saying. I think we might have had one chapter on that. On Mendel and Punnett squares and recessive versus dominant traits and genes and all that other junk. I don't know. I had to learn evolution on my own, actually, how it all worked. I didn't have it in school. And I took, 9th and 10th and maybe 11th grade science. I dropped out halfway through 11th. So I guess I passed 9th and 10th grade science. Which I believe is usually when they're talking about it, right? So
the first self-replicating systems must have emerged in this organic soup. So great-great-great-great-grandpa was soup. This is one of the lies in the textbooks you kids have to face. Nobody has a clue how life could have gotten started by non-living chemicals. Even Haeckel confessed, he's the guy we talked about in the last session, that made up the idea that the embryo has gill slits, so they could justify abortion.
That's completely fabricated. That Haeckel, he claimed that Haeckel had like a criminal trial and all this other nonsense, these lies that did not happen. But Haeckel did draw embryos to try to demonstrate like what they look like and demonstrate certain things about like formation in the womb and kind of how human beings and other creatures form generally. And he was criticized by his peers through the peer review process for being a little loose with how he drew his embryos of different species. But the structures that he drew as gill slits are actually, they start out as structures that do eventually turn into gill slits or lungs, depending on the creature or whatever. Or jaw, I think, actually. Gill slits turn into jaw in mammals, if I remember. So Haeckel is like much less of a fraud than Kent Hovind wants people to believe.
Haeckel said, he claimed that spontaneous generation must be true, not because it had been proven in the laboratory, but because otherwise it would be necessary to believe in a creator.
I don't know why we're covering Haeckel again. Let's find out if this is true. No, this is fake. This is just completely made up. He never said this. This is 100% completely and totally fictitious. This is one of the most wild things to me about Kent Hovind. The dude literally just makes things up completely, just fabricates it out of the ether. And it's like, how do you justify this? He was sitting there making PowerPoints for this presentation, sitting in front of presumably a PowerPoint, PowerPoint existed at the time. He's sitting in front of PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint, and wrote this out with absolutely no source. He said, let's say Haeckel claims it'd be necessary to believe in a creator. Completely fabricated. Again, I said this in the last one. When you call somebody a liar, it implies a habitual thing. Like they're doing this constantly. They can't help themselves but to lie. They do it for a living. I don't like calling people liars because it's too black and white, right? Calling somebody a liar is too black and white. Everybody has like dimensions to their personality or whatever. But Kent Hovind is a liar here. He is lying, fabricating information intentionally to deceive people. It's wild to me how comfortable he is with lying like this. This is just completely fake, what he just showed us.
What?
Oh, records from the University of Jena trial in 1875. That's fake. That trial never happened. That never happened. That's not real. There are no records at all of any such trial. The whole thing is fake.
Well, Ernst, I'm sorry, bud. That's just the way it goes. Okay, there's a creator, whether you like it or not. Okay, so have they really produced life in the laboratory? Oh, they haven't even come close. Here's what they did. They took 4 gases. They took
They're pretty close now.
methane, ammonia, water vapor, and hydrogen, ran them through these tubes, ran it through a spark chamber supposed to simulate lightning. They say, we're going to put them together and make life in the laboratory. At the bottom of the flask, they got this red goo, and they kept draining the goo off, because if it went through the spark again, it would destroy it. So they had to make the goo and then save it from...
Don't believe a word out of his mouth. Again, he lies for a living. He's lied like 16 times in the past 5 minutes.
The next spark, okay? They said in the textbook here it was rich in amino acids, this red goo was. Well, that's simply a lie, okay? They didn't come close to making life. The problem is they had a reducing atmosphere. In other words, he excluded oxygen. You can look at his 4 gases. There's
Miller and... hang on. Exclude oxygen. Oh, I'm sorry, hang on. They had to exclude oxygen, and they couldn't let a spark hit it more than once. See what we can find out here. Miller-Urey did use a reducing atmosphere, methane, ammonia, hydrogen, water vapor, with little to no free oxygen. That's because that was the atmosphere, the early Earth atmosphere. So yes, free oxygen would indeed break down organic molecules as they formed. Early Earth probably did lack free oxygen. Geological evidence strongly suggests Earth's early atmosphere had little to no free oxygen. Free oxygen didn't accumulate until the cyanobacteria evolved 2.4 billion years ago, give or take. This is not a flaw in the experiment. It's accurately modeling early Earth. Now, regarding the single spark claim, this is just false. That's just not true at all. The Miller-Urey apparatus ran continuously for a week. The spark discharged repeatedly, thousands of times, to simulate lightning. The experiment worked because of repeated sparking, not despite repeated sparking. Products accumulated over time with continuous energy input. Hovind is completely misrepresenting the experiment. I have to wonder, why did he decide to go with it couldn't spark multiple times rather than it had to spark thousands of times? That would have been more accurate and just as meaningless. Bizarre. I don't understand why Hovind picks the propaganda lines that he picks. Like, they're nonsensical and they're also just flat out lies.
No oxygen there. He knew if he had oxygen in there, it would oxidize whatever chemicals tried to combine.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Of course. That's correct.
You know, you cut a banana open and lay it on the table, it turns brown, it oxidizes. You don't paint your car, and it oxidizes, it rusts. Well, living cells will oxidize quickly in the presence of oxygen. So he didn't put any oxygen in there. That creates a serious problem.
No, it doesn't create a serious problem. There was no oxygen in the early Earth atmosphere, of course. What are you smoking? My God, dude. Like, every word out of this guy's mouth is a fucking lie. Just a reminder, I would really appreciate it if you guys checked out my Patreon. If you're not going to donate, you don't have to, but follow me there at the very least. owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Just in case something happens with the government or whatever. It would be really good if you had some way to connect with me and my content. I'm really concerned about that. And maybe you should consider that for other creators too.
Because if you have oxygen, you cannot get life to come from non-living chemicals. The problem is ozone is made from oxygen, and ozone blocks UV light, and UV light destroys ammonia, and ammonia is one of the 4 gases he's got. So you cannot get life to evolve with oxygen, and you cannot get life to evolve without oxygen.
Okay, let's find out. Ozone is O3, so it's large oxygen molecules, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like, it wasn't free-roaming oxygen, the thing that would have destroyed early life. It was ozone. I don't even need to look this one up. They're different. The ozone layer protects the Earth from UV and things like that.
Oxygen, and you cannot get life to evolve without oxygen. Because if you don't have oxygen, you don't have ozone, and now your ammonia gets destroyed. It's just not going to work either way.
Dude, I swear to God, it is so wild to listen to him flat out fabricate shit the way that he does. It is absolutely wild.
And the Earth has always had oxygen, even more than today.
No, that's not true. It has not.
This guy said, what evidence is there for a primitive methane ammonia atmosphere on Earth? The answer is there is no evidence for it, but much against it.
Wait, who? He said this guy. Is that what he just said?
Primitive more than today. This guy said,
this guy? Who the fuck is this guy? Last name guy, first name this?
what evidence is there for a primitive methane ammonia atmosphere on Earth? The answer is there is no evidence for it, but much against it.
This guy, I love it. I absolutely love it. This quote said, this guy. Volume 55, June 1966, page 1365. What is the evidence for primitive methane ammonia atmosphere on Earth? The answer is that there is no evidence for it, but much against it. This quote is real, but Hovind is using a 59-year-old quote while ignoring what science has learned since 1966, that this actually strengthens abiogenesis research, not weakens it. And, you know, Hovind must have known that science doesn't stop in 1966. I'm not sure why he pulled a quote that was literally 40 years old when he made this thing, this presentation. 76, 86, 96. Yeah, this is literally 40 years old when he made the presentation. That is insane. Why does Hovind do this? Why does he think it's okay to flat out lie like this? It's wild to me.
We find in general no evidence in the sedimentary distribution of carbon, sulfur, uranium, etc., that an oxygen-free atmosphere ever existed on the Earth. If somebody tells you the early Earth had a reducing atmosphere, you tell them Kent Hovind said they're confused or they're deliberately lying, because it's not true.
Kent Hovind, talking about deliberately lying.
The Earth has always had oxygen. This article said, it's suggested from the earliest dated rocks at 3.7 billion years ago, Earth had an oxygenic atmosphere.
Again, this is 1982. It didn't. There was very little to no free-roaming oxygen. There was ozone at a certain point to, you know, which acted as a blanket against like UV radiation, which protected, you know, RNA from being broken down and things like that. But Kent Hovind just refuses to accept that, of course.
They've always known the Earth had oxygen, even more than we have today. We covered that on seminar part 2, how the early Earth probably had even more oxygen.
Yeah, he claims that dinosaurs and other creatures like that were gigantic because there was a lot of oxygen. Dude, I should honestly go back through all of these now because they're so fucking entertaining, really. I would love to go back through all of the seminar episodes.
Made them live longer. This textbook says there was no oxygen on the Earth, which is a lie, and then it says the rocks absorbed it.
There was no free flow or free moving oxygen on Earth. That is not a lie. That is true. And which book are we even looking at exactly?
Hello? How can they absorb it if it wasn't there? Well, think about it. Second problem they had with the Miller experiment, they filtered out the product. That is not realistic for nature, okay? They saved the goo from getting sparked the second time because it would have destroyed it.
That's not true. That's just a complete falsification. It was sparked thousands of times. Why did he pick that lie of all things? I have to wonder.
What he actually made in this experiment was 85% tar, 13% carboxylic acid. Now, both of those are poisonous to life.
Wait, what do you mean when you say tar?
If you make a mixture that's 98% poisonous to the other 2%, I don't think it's logical to say you've succeeded in creating anything that's going to help make life, okay?
I mean, really? Oxygen was poisonous to life in the early days, and it completely, like, the presence of oxygen completely changed the way everything functions. This is just wild to me that he just brazenly lies like this. He can't not know that he is lying. He can't not know that what he's saying is false.
The problems are he made mostly only 2 amino acids. There are 20 different ones required to make life. 20 different amino acids.
Yeah, again, it wasn't meant to prove or to create life. It was meant to prove that it's possible, obviously.
Now, these amino acids are kind of like letters of the alphabet, okay? You have to have 26 letters in the English alphabet to make all the words that we have. Well, you have to have 20 different amino acids to make all the proteins that your body has. With those 20 different amino acids, your body can build a bazillion different kinds of proteins, kind of like you can make a lot of different words with the same 26 letters, okay? What he actually made was a couple of letters, like 2 of the letters of the alphabet, by combining these gases. This creates a real problem since half of them were left-handed and half of them were right-handed.
Some of them were left and right-handed, yes, and I think that we needed left-handed specifically to make this work. Yes. Okay? So?
What he actually made was amino acids, only 2 of them, and half of them were backwards. I mean, if I drop letters of the alphabet, there's a 50-50 chance some of them are going to land upside down. They don't do any good.
Right, but we do have some that do some good, obviously. So I'm not sure I understand the point here.
You have to have them all facing the right way.
No, you have to have some facing the right way.
The smallest proteins we know of have about 70 to 100 amino acids, all of them facing the right way. This greatly compounds the problem, okay? DNA and RNA are all right-handed, all other proteins are left-handed. It's a very puzzling fact. All proteins that have been investigated, from animals, plants, and higher organisms, and from simple organisms, bacteria, molds, even viruses, are made of left-handed amino acids.
I think that's correct, but okay, I don't understand what the point is here, so?
They're all that way. So he's really got a problem since half of his letters were backwards.
No, he doesn't have a problem. The left-handed ones can work just fine. We don't need all of them to be right-handed.
And there are hundreds of amino acids required to combine in just the right way to make a protein, and they unbond in water faster than they bond.
Again, we don't necessarily need it to be a protein that forms, I don't believe. Like, very, very simple things can form, and then, like, kind of evolve on a molecular level. That's what we discovered recently. Molecular evolution, effectively, in 2024.
And they claim this all happened in the oceans. Well, the oceans are completely full of water, all the way to the bottom.
Okay, I don't know if this happened in the oceans, but so, okay?
And Brownian motion's going to drive them apart. It's not going to put them together. One of the lies in the textbooks is that they made life in the laboratory. They have all they've done. Every experiment has made the problem worse for the evolutionist, okay?
Okay, first of all, no one ever claimed that they made life in the laboratory. Literally, not one human being ever claimed they made life in the laboratory. And second, I mean, they made the prerequisites to life. And second, it didn't make it worse. It made it more understandable, more explicable. We understand things more clearly now since that experiment.
These spontaneous generations do not occur spontaneously in water. Life is not going to get started in this way. There's a whole lot more in the book, Icons of Evolution, if you want a lot more on the subject to go down deep.
He mentioned this book the other day as well, and it's just nonsense.
But they got this weird idea in their head that all they have to do is get all the right chemicals together and then add energy, and it'll make life. Okay, well, let's do an experiment. Let's put a frog in a blender and turn it on. In a matter of moments, you will have frog nog.
Okay, that's horrifying, first of all. That's a disturbing and disgusting analogy. And second, that's not what they did. That's not what was claimed. That's not what happened. This is just delusion.
And you will have all of the chemicals required to make a frog in one blender, right? Then we're going to add energy.
Again, this is just the same, tornado junkyard argument. He's intentionally, completely misrepresenting what was discovered in Miller-Urey and what was so exciting about it. We're starting from basically nothing. We're starting from zero and watching the formation of protein chains and things like that. That's a pretty big deal. That's very exciting.
You can turn it on puree for 30 minutes. You can nuke it, microwave it, zap it with jumper cables.
Wait. Nuke it and microwave it are different things?
I don't care what you do. Drop a hand grenade in there. Add all the energy you want, okay? How long will it take to reassemble the frog?
Again, that's not what's happening. That's not what anybody ever claimed. It's completely made up.
It'll never happen. See, just getting the chemicals together isn't the problem. You go to the mortuary. You got a dead body laying there. You got all the chemicals required for life right there in one spot. Bring it back to life. Life is something different. I don't think science has ever defined that clearly, but they talk about how we all came from this early life form. Once this first life form got started, this single cell, then it evolved into everything else. Like this textbook shows the kids that a bacteria slowly evolved to a human. These trees of life are absolute propaganda. There is no evidence for any of these, okay?
There absolutely is evidence for these.
Even Mary Leakey said, those trees of life with the branches of our ancestors, that's a lot of nonsense, okay? Stephen Gould said the evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks are not the evidence of fossils, that's for sure. There is no evidence that any animal is related to any other kind of animal. But this textbook says, all the many forms of life on Earth today are descended from a common ancestor found
There's a ton of evidence for this. What are you talking about?
in a population of primitive unicellular organisms. There's no such thing as a primitive unicellular organism. If it's alive, it's complicated.
Wait a minute. So he's saying there's no such thing as a unicellular organism? Is that what he just said? I think that's what he just said.
Of primitive unicellular organisms. There's no such thing as a primitive unicellular organism.
What? You don't think that they're single-celled organisms? Am I understanding this correctly? Is that what he's saying? There's no such thing as single-celled organisms?
If it's alive, it's complicated. We'll cover more on that in a minute. And then it says, no traces of those events remain. What they do is they tell the kids, okay, kids, the mammals, the birds, and the crocodiles have a common ancestor. They draw these trees in the books, and they look so pretty, and the kid goes, wow, they've got proof. I saw it in my book.
Okay, that's not proof, though. The tree is not proof. It's a description of what's happening or what happened. We have tons of proof for this, which he just spent like 2 hours trying to erase and pretend doesn't exist. I'm sorry, man. The proof is there, whether you like that or not.
No, they've got a picture in your book, okay? Everything inside that circle is pure religious speculation. They think it happened, they hope it happened, but there is zero evidence for anything inside that circle.
Simply false.
It's one of the lies you're going to have to face in your textbook. The Bible says if you offend one of these little ones, you'd be better off with a millstone about your neck. Go swimming. These folks teaching evolution are in serious trouble when they stand before God. Then they tell them we come from a simple, primitive, unicellular organism. Look, just because it's smaller doesn't mean it's simpler.
It's simpler. What are you fucking talking about? You think that unicellular organisms are just as complex as multicellular organisms? Or even, are you saying that prokaryotes don't exist? Or what? I don't understand what he's trying to say. This doesn't make any sense at all.
A paramecium is more complicated than a space shuttle, and you can put thousands of those into one drop of water. Smaller is not simpler. That's one of the lies in the textbooks.
Okay, interesting. Smaller is simpler, in my opinion, by definition, because a smaller organism, say a cell with organelles in it, is less simple than me with organs made up of cells with organelles. The part is less complex than the whole, by definition, right?
Oh, yeah. Here's a microchip inside a paperclip. Pretty small. Not simple. This microchip is being held in the mouth of an ant, and that little microchip can process every letter of the Bible 200 times per second.
Process it? What the fuck does processing it mean?
Smaller is not simpler. I'll show you.
Not necessarily, but it is simpler a lot of the time, obviously. What are you even trying to prove with this? I don't understand.
Compare the brain of a honeybee to NASA's Cray computer. At one time, the world's fastest computer. I think they got a faster one now. The brain of a honeybee is pretty small. The Cray computer is huge. We would all agree there's a size difference, right? Okay.
Again, the Cray computer, he mentioned this in the previous one. It's not anywhere near as complex as the stuff that we have today. Like, not even close. I remember my dad talking about the Cray computer when I was little, but there are far more complex things today. Like the smartphone, any smartphone is smarter than the Cray computer by miles.
Now, the Cray computer could do 6 billion calculations per second.
That's really not that many, actually.
It was estimated that the honeybee's brain is doing about 1 trillion calculations per second, 1,000 billion. So that little honeybee brain is about 133 times faster than a Cray computer. The Cray uses many megawatts. It's power hungry. The honeybee uses 10 microwatts.
I don't know about that, but whatever.
But you know, honeybees not only make honey, they fly on honey. That's their energy source. And a honeybee can fly 1,000,000 miles on 1 gallon of honey. How would you like a machine that gets 1,000,000 miles per gallon? Especially at today's price of gas, right?
I mean, we could have a machine that does that much if it were as small as a honeybee, of course. But we have cars that carry, you know, all kinds of really, really heavy shit. So naturally, we need to take up a lot of gas.
Fill up once and you're done for the rest of your life. The Cray cost $48 million. The honeybee's brain is pretty cheap. You splat them on your windshield all the time, right? Many people scramble when the Cray breaks down. Nobody heals the honeybee. A self-healing computer. Steve, you work on computers. How'd you like one of them? Something crashes, reconfigures itself, fixes it all up, no problem. Cray weighed 20.
I mean, we have things like that in computers, that kind of self-correcting mechanisms or whatever.
300 pounds. Honeybee's brain doesn't weigh too much. So what should we conclude? Let's see, the supercomputer is huge, it is slow, it is very inefficient, it is power hungry, and it had to be designed. We all know.
Again, like when this came out, the Cray computer had already been deprecated for like years, decades maybe. It was big in like 1983. This was produced in 2006, I think. Why are you even talking about the Cray?
Oh, that, right? But did they turn around and look at the honeybee and say, well, that happened by chance?
It did.
And the brain of a human's a whole lot more complex than a honeybee.
Wait, are you trying to tell me that small things aren't as complex as big things? That's not what I heard.
For heaven's sake, your brain can hold more information than the entire British Library. The human brain is phenomenal, okay? You have more computational power in bits per second than the entire national telephone system. One brain surgeon estimated that there are more connections in just one person's brain, there are more connections than the entire electrical system of the United States.
Okay, yeah. Is the entire electrical system of the United States compacted into a very tiny little area? Of course not. This isn't an indication. I mean, they're just not comparable to each other. They just aren't. Metal Jacket says the Apple M1 chip does 11 trillion operations per second. That sounds about right. For those who are unfamiliar with how that works, you basically got lines of like wires that are laid down through a processor, and the processor tells things where to go. It lays down those electrical lines to the video card or to the memory or whatever. Well, it has a North Bridge chip and a South Bridge chip, and I believe the North Bridge goes to the memory, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's the South Bridge. And the other one goes to other components, PCIe components and things like that. So you got USB plugs on your computer or a video card or whatever, or memory. It all goes through the CPU to those places. And those 11 trillion operations per second, that's basically how many electrical pulses are going through per second. And they do that by sending an electrical current through a quartz crystal. It used to be the way they do it anyway, with a quartz crystal. And when you send an electrical pulse through a quartz crystal, it sends this electrical pulse at a certain frequency. And that frequency can only be so high, depending on what crystal you're using. And they've reached 11 trillion hertz, if you will. So these electrical pulses go through the CPU at the frequency of a quartz crystal when electricity is sent through it.
Connections in just one person's brain, there are more connections than the entire electrical system of the United States. How many wires have been connected together in the United States, would you guess, inside every computer and inside every machine and inside every building?
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
This is going to be inaccurate, of course, because we have way more connections in computers and stuff today. However, even then, I think we may have had more connections in 2006, which is when I think this came out. Let me, when did this come out? This came out, 2005. Yeah, it came out in 2005. So it came out 20 years ago, but even then, we had so many connections in so many computers, so many phones. I mean, our computer networks were massive even then. So I don't know what he's talking about here. In a single brain, I think we had more connections then than in a single brain.
Like zillions of them. One brain has more than that.
No, I'm not convinced of that. Let's see. He says the human brain has more connections, synapses, than all computer transistors combined in 2005. Let's see if we can get an answer to this. Yeah, it's outdated and it was false even then. It might have been true in 2005, but it's a terrible argument. Approximately 86 billion neurons in a human brain. Each neuron has 7,000 synaptic connections on average. So we're talking 600 trillion total synapses. Global transistors in 2005 is hard to estimate, but estimates suggest around 10 to the 18th power transistors, when there are only 6 times 10 to the 14th power synaptic connections in a human brain. So that's just not true. Today, we produce over 1 trillion transistors per second globally. Estimates suggest we've manufactured over 10 to the 21, or 1 sextillion transistors cumulatively. There are over 1 million times more than, that's over 1 million times more than synapses in a human brain. So, yeah, just false, even then.
One professor told me that he believed in evolution, and I said, well, sir, do you believe your brain is nothing but 3 pounds of chemicals that got together by chance?
No, that's not what anybody believes. And evolution isn't something you believe. It's something that you accept. It's a truth claim.
He said, yeah. I said, then how can you trust your thoughts and the conclusions you come to?
Nobody would say yes to that.
Maybe you got a chemical in there backwards. He did, by the way, several actually. But then they tell the kids, well, DNA is pretty tiny, but that proves evolution. That's what this textbook says. We have evidence of evolution from molecular biology. Darwin speculated all forms of life are related. This speculation has been verified. They are
speculated all forms of life related. Yes, that's correct.
Lying to your kids. Nothing about DNA has helped with the evolution theory at all. DNA, which stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, is the most complex molecule in the universe. Unbelievably complicated molecule.
Maybe. I suppose it could be the most complex in the universe.
That little DNA molecule, average person has 50 trillion cells in their body with 46 of those little molecules in each cell.
Again, don't trust anything out of his mouth. Like, he lies for a living, so just be skeptical, even if it sounds reasonable.
46 chromosome strands in each cell of your body. If you extracted all of it, it would only fill about 2 tablespoons. But if you took those DNA strands and unwound them, stretched them out, tied them together, one person's DNA would reach from Earth to the moon and back over 500,000 times.
That's possible.
Round trips to the moon. They say the DNA holds more information than all computer programs ever written by man combined.
At the time, certainly, and maybe now. Possibly. I'm not sure what point you're getting at. Who cares?
IBM models the newest computers after DNA. The quantity of information is so vast, we have to invent new numbers to measure it. Not terabytes, petabytes, or exabytes, yottabytes, and zettabytes. All the words uttered by everyone who ever lived would amount to 5 exabytes.
Possibly. Okay, so?
And your DNA and your chromosome holds more information than that. It is so unbelievably complex. If you typed out the code found in your DNA, when you got done typing, you'd have enough books to fill Grand Canyon 78 times.
All right, I'm not sure what. So?
That's the instructions to make you. I'd say you're pretty special.
I mean, I'd say you're pretty complex, yeah.
Quite a list of instructions to make you. David said, I will praise thee, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And he didn't have a microscope, and he could figure that out. Yeah. You know, from conception to birth, the baby adds 15,000 cells per minute to its body. Each one is more complicated than a space shuttle. How would you like to be in charge of the supply end of supplying a factory that is producing 15,000 space shuttles a minute? And it's your job to make sure they have all the nuts and bolts and screws and everything they need to put that thing together.
You're the guy in the background? Did you hear him do that just now? One more time.
Everything they need to put that thing together. Some of you women are saying, boy, I did it, and that's hard too. Sometimes they want pickles in the middle of the night, you know. What are you building down there anyway, you know? The probability of one DNA happening by chance has been calculated to be 1 in 10 to the 119,000th power. That's a big number when you figure the entire visible universe is about 10 to the 28th inches in diameter.
Wait, so he said probability just one DNA arranging itself by chance? Like, nobody ever said that. No one ever expected that to happen. That's fictitious. 1 in 119,000, or I'm sorry, 10 to the 119,000th power. Yeah, like, of course, that's not what anybody understands the situation to be. He's completely misrepresenting this.
DNA has not proven anything that would help the evolution theory. It's been made the problem much, much, much worse.
No, it hasn't. Just hasn't.
Let's just assume that the chromosome number means something and that, you know, it could evolve. Okay, well, then I did some research on this. I discovered penicillin has 2 chromosomes. That one had to evolve first. And then slowly over millions of years, they got some more chromosomes because they're complicated, you know, and turned into a fruit fly. You can see the similarity there. It's only got 8 chromosomes. And then very slowly, it evolved some more chromosomes and became either a tomato or a housefly. Very tough to tell the difference. They're identical twins, you know. And then very slowly, over millions of years, it evolved into either a pea or a bee. You can see the similarity there, you know, pea, bee, very similar. And slowly became lettuce and then a carrot. And finally, when we got to 22 chromosomes, triplets. The possum, the redwood tree, and the kidney bean all have 22 chromosomes. Average scientists cannot tell them apart. Let's see, which one is which here? Okay, let's see, tree, possum, bean,
yes, that's very funny.
And we have 46, folks. And if we can just get 2 more, the next step of human evolution, we're going to become a tobacco plant. I know some
That's not how chromosomes work, obviously.
already smell like it. Sometimes I'll get on the elevator and I'll say, man, you're evolving, you're way ahead of me. And it probably won't happen in my lifetime, but we might get enough chromosomes someday to be either a dog or a chicken. They're twins too, you know. And then way down the road, you know, we're going to become a carp.
Like, nobody ever said they're twins.
They got double the chromosomes we do. And someday, stardate 349572, we're going to become a fern.
Shout out to Star Trek. Stardate, what did he say? Stardate 44 something or other?
Double the chromosomes we do. And someday, stardate 349572, we're going to become a fern. I was at a church one time, and this lady walked up to me afterwards, and she said, Mr. Hovind, I'm Fern. I shook hands with that hand right there. I'll never wash it again. Hey.
He's an idiot.
How come the evolutionists are always comparing things that fit their theory? Why don't they show us the things that don't fit their theory?
Because nothing doesn't fit the theory. If it didn't fit the theory, then the theory would be rewritten to be more cohesive with like reality or whatever. I mean, there are falsifiable things that would completely falsify evolution if discovered. For example, a rabbit in the Precambrian era of the fossil record would completely change the way that we understand evolution. All we need is one example of this. That's it.
Like, let's just say we're going to examine how things evolved based upon how long they lived. Well, we could arrange animals by how long they live, and we'll find out the hamster evolved first, slowly turned into a cat, and then a canary, and then a dog, and then a chimpanzee, and an alligator, elephant, horse, turtle, and human. We made it, folks. We made it. Let's arrange the animals based on how long they're pregnant, their gestation period. Well, in that case, the possum, only 13 days. How'd you like that, ladies? Only be pregnant for 13 days, not bad.
I mean, the possum is a marsupial, so.
Yeah, I'd have a bunch of kids in. Slowly evolve.
It's a marsupial, which means that it has a pouch that it keeps its children in. So yes, it technically births the child, but it's very, very small and still has more time that it needs to grow in the pouch, like a kangaroo.
Evolved into a hamster, then a rat, then a rabbit, kangaroo, on down the list, and the elephant. 640 days. They are the winner. The most evolved creature on Earth.
Nobody ever made that claim. What are you even smoking?
Or maybe you can see here the cat and the dog are identical twins, you know. Maybe we should arrange them based on how much they weigh in their adult form. Well, the shrew only weighs 4 grams.
Like, why would anybody arrange it this way? This doesn't make any sense at all.
Slowly it became a mouse. And very slowly, over billions of years, became a whale. The whale's the most evolved now. Why don't they show us these charts, huh? And why is it that amphibians have 5 times more DNA than mammals, and some amoeba have 1,000 times more DNA? They don't tell us these things because it doesn't fit their theory. It's impossible to arrange in any sort of evolutionary series based on just one little bit of facts. You better find all the facts. You find out this evolution theory fails miserably.
Again, like none of this stuff is applicable at all or changes our understanding of anything at all. I'll tell you one thing that I find particularly interesting that's kind of difficult to explain to me, but it doesn't invalidate evolution. Why are baby cats cuter than baby humans to us? That's interesting, right? It's an interesting question. No one is avoiding that question. It doesn't invalidate our understanding of evolution. Baby features are more exaggerated in kittens. We find big eyes and tiny kind of cheeks very, very cute. Human babies are less finished, quote unquote. Human babies are born extremely underdeveloped compared to other mammals. It's because of our large brains. If we gestated longer, our heads wouldn't fit through the birth canal. So human babies look more alien and less classically cute at birth. We do find human babies cute, though, just differently. Parents rate their own babies as extremely cute, pair bonding. The cute response to human babies is strong, but it's more emotionally complex. It triggers nurturing instincts, not just awe reactions. Kittens hit multiple cute buttons at once. Soft fur, a tactile appeal, playfulness, entertainment value, helplessness, protection instinct, and quick movements, engaging to watch. They're less demanding than human babies, no screaming at 3 a.m. The evolutionary explanation, they don't need to be maximally cute to everyone. They just need to be cute to their parents to ensure care. Human babies do. For kittens, cat mothers have litters of 4 to 6 kittens. Less individual bonding per kitten is needed. The cute features help them survive by triggering protection instincts in mothers and humans. They mature much faster, 8 weeks versus 18 plus years. That's why one is cuter than the other. We generally view big eyes as particularly cute, and cats have very big eyes, especially in the dark.
But they tell the kids, we're going to think critically, boys and girls. There are 20 kinds of amino acids. That's a fact. Explain how this fact supports the idea that all life shares a common ancestor. How's a Christian kid supposed to answer that for homework for Monday?
I mean, with the scientific answer, of course.
Don't you see a built-in assumption in this question? That's not learning to think critically. Would the kid be allowed, teacher, to explain how this fact that all life forms have 20 amino acids, would the kid be allowed to say, maybe that proves the intelligence of a common designer?
No, because it doesn't. That's not a scientific answer. That's a religious answer. And we all have to go to these schools. Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and atheists alike. So we only want verified factual information. You want to teach them about Jesus, teach them about it on your own time.
Maybe God gave all the animals the same basic 20 amino acids so that we don't have to just eat each other, you know. I mean, if they're all totally different, wildly different kinds, then we could only eat other humans. But see, God made it this way so the brown cow can eat the green grass and give the white milk and make the yellow butter, and I eat it and get the blonde hair.
Okay.
Maybe that's why there's all the same basic building blocks. Yeah.
They're not just the same building blocks, the same basic building blocks. They are identical structures in some and identical structures in others, like the exact same leg and hip bones in all mammals, and we find that whales have those hip bones, but sharks don't.